Recording in progress. Hi, thank you all for attending our webinar this morning. And what we're going to talk to you today is, with the holidays, having that uncomfortable conversation about estate planning during the holidays with your family. I know that can be a daunting and challenging thing to bring up during the holidays, especially when we've got parents who are a little bit older and who are maybe private and don't like to share that information. I'm Carolyn with AmeriEstate Legal Plan, and I have Michelle Reese-Johnson. She's our vice president, and I've got Scott Pringle, operations. And we just wanted to share with you today and talk to you about how you can have that conversation during the holidays with family and about estate planning, because we know it's hard, and we just want to be able to give you some conversation starters and talk to you about some real life experiences that we've had to help you break the ice and get that conversation open, because it is so important for everyone to have an estate plan so that we know that our wishes are carried out the way that we want them to be. So having said that, you know, and the holidays are perfect because we have our family together during the holidays. And as I mentioned, as uncomfortable as it is, it's something that really needs to happen. And as long as you're prepared in advance, it's just going to make it that much easier. So that's what we're here to help you do. And, you know, and talking now with your parents can also help children. You know, I mean, I'm an adult, but I'm somebody's child, understand why they made certain decisions for things. Like why maybe my older brother is entitled to something that I'm not entitled to, or vice versa. So we're going to talk about all those things today and hopefully give you the tools to have those conversations with your parents. So having said that, I'm going to bounce it over to Scott right now. So Scott, I mean, you've been with AmeriEstate for quite a few years. You know, like, have you had that conversation with your parents or with your wife's family recently?
Yes, I have. I've been with AmeriEstate Legal Plan for 15 years now. It's been a great run. And actually, I just got back from a family vacation. My great aunt, who's 94 years old, just turned 94, Aunt Jean, she rents a beach house in North Carolina for Thanksgiving and invites all family to come over. So it's obviously haven't been there in a while because of COVID. So this is my first time going back and seeing everyone again. And it was really nice. And during that stay, while all parties were there, it just kind of, I was lucky. My parents brought it up to me. So I didn't have to break the ice too much. Mm-hmm. But we had conversations before, but then once the ice does get broken, it's just amazing. There's a weight lifted, and then it's so much easier to kind of talk about it and also get to understand what changes are happening in the family.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about, I know they approached you about it, but what kind of tips can you give to our clients, our potential clients, on how to get that conversation started?
Gotcha. For me, after we broke the ice and then more conversations hanging out with the family, I did find like, oh, wait a minute, this would have been a great time. This would have been a great time. We kind of got into a dinner discussion after dinner, talking about old family members and genealogy. Mm-hmm. And while we're talking about old members, it's kind of neat to see which person and what their legacy and memories were for people. And a lot of those memories were tied to where they lived, their homes and their assets, and and some cherished possessions. And those I could see those as being a great opportunity. Like, well, how about us? You know, how would we be moving forward? Mm-hmm. And so that was a neat time. And also when you're just finding out how everyone's doing health-wise, that's a great opportunity as well.
Right. And Michelle, Michelle's our vice president at AmeriEstate. So her and her brother have built this company. Talk to me about some of your experience or some clients' experience that you've dealt with where they were struggling to bring up that conversation. They know that their parents needed to get an estate plan in place. You were sharing with us a story just recently.
Yes, I'm kind of lucky because my parents are all about estate planning. It's in the blood, in the family of ours. Mm-hmm. My first recommendation is don't talk about this while you're having Thanksgiving dinner. Mm-hmm. But choose a time, maybe when your siblings are coming in, or after, maybe the next day, that you're all getting together on a family meeting, or just like a get together, and something in more of a casual setting could be. But personally, I've seen a lot of clients struggle with the question. They're afraid to ask the question to their parents. They don't think it's any of their business. I find that often. A lot of times their parents are from the old school, they're in the 30s, from the 30s and 40s. And they're very, very private people. And as they get older, they get a little more private. It could be due to several factors. They could maybe be losing some cognitive memory. You're noticing things about your parents that aren't what it used to be. And sometimes they're getting agitated. So a lot of kids feel like, I can't bring it up because it's going to make dad agitated, or he's just a very private person. I've seen him over the years. So when that happens, you guys just got to be bold, and you have to sit your parents down and maybe have this conversation with your siblings beforehand and ask the question, Mom and Dad, do you have an estate plan? And they may or may not know exactly what you mean by that. But if they say, well, yes, honey, I do, everything's taken care of. Well, you're going to want to dig a little deeper about that. Okay, so did you set up a living trust, Mom, or just a will? Do you have your powers of attorney in place for your health and your assets? And Mom and Dad could say, yes, honey, we have everything done. And they'll stop there. Keep digging. Because I've seen it where this has happened and the conversation stops. They believe their parents have everything taken care of. But a lot of times they really don't. So just be persistent in a kind, gentle way and say, great, if you have that, Mom, right now that I'm here from New York, why don't you show me where that is? So I just want to be prepared in case something happens to you and Dad. And Mom might say, well, honey, we'll look at that later. Or sure, babe, let's go and I'll show you where it is. So that's a great opportunity for you to find out what they have, and Mom will bring it out, or Dad. But if Mom and Dad won't bring it out, just say, okay, maybe you can't find it. I'll help you look for it. Where do you think it is, Mom? Well, okay. So you're just going to keep asking that question, because personally, from experience working at AmeriEstate, I've had the situation where the wife has told the significant other, or the husband, or just, I think it was a boyfriend situation. They weren't married, and she was very, very sick. And he kept asking her, do you have an estate plan? And she would say, I have everything taken care of. And that's all she would say. She was very, very private, and he didn't feel comfortable digging any deeper. Well, come to find out, she did not have anything in place at all. And she was basically at the end of her life. And so I got the frantic phone call, can you help us? She does not have anything in place, and we don't think she's going to make it much longer. And I said, absolutely, as long as she's cognizant, she can have an attorney consultation and she can sign in front of a notary, we can do it. We did that trust within 6 hours, got it signed, the attorney on the phone call, the deed in the trust, in the nick of time, because I found out the next day she did pass away. So we could have avoided a lot of that if she would have just been upfront. But some people are just very, very private. So if they're just putting that off, just get the proof, have them lead you to the product, the trust, the powers of attorney, have them show you. And if they don't show them, there's other ways you can find out if somebody has an estate planning. You can call AmeriEstate and we'll let you know how to find those things out.
Yes, absolutely. And that brings up a good point. So, during the holidays, when we're having that conversation, it's like, Mom, Dad, do you have an estate plan? And if they say yes, show it to me. So let's talk about, no, I don't have an estate plan. And, Scott, have you had any relatives recently that have not had an estate plan? And how have you had that conversation to get them to really consider getting an estate plan completed?
Just as of late, it wasn't a direct family member, but a lifelong family friend of my parents' age, had the person who she had lived with for over 20 years, and then in the final years wound up being his primary caretaker because he lived to be into his 90s. And then after the fact, now he didn't have an estate plan. He only had a will, and he had additional properties that weren't even included in the original will.
Wow.
And so he obviously took care of our friend who had been his partner for over 20 years. And like I say, primary caregiver, while the parent or the kids were just basically absent. But now the kids have gotten super greedy. They want to cut our friend out. And she's having to get an estate plan, probate attorney. Fortunately, she's in this place where it's just kind of like I'm standing up for myself.
Mhm.
But the attorneys and bureaucracy that's going to win, and the kids they're so greedy to her. I just can't imagine how greedy they're going to be among themselves.
So that's another reason why it's so important to get your estate plan done sooner than later. And even if they say that, yes, I do have an estate plan, well, that's great, but how old is the estate plan? And, there's been experiences where, somebody has moved. And, once you move, you need to have your estate plan revised and updated. And that's something that we can do at AmeriEstate, even if we didn't draw up your original living trust, we can go ahead and take care of that. But we have the ability to review trusts if somebody's moved, and something that's so common right now in the commonplace is just people have gone through divorces and different marriages and things like that, and my personal experience with that is my father, he was married and then he passed away. And I've got my stepmom, and my grandmother's estate ended with him. And so then my mother-in-law, who I just referred to AmeriEstate, she just got her living trust done. And I'm so happy that she did, because now everything's going to stay within the family. So that's a good case. I'd like for you guys to share experiences that maybe have not been so good, where you have seen somebody that was married and divorced, and then the divorced parent then gets remarried and they keep everything to themselves. Have you guys experienced anything like that?
Actually, I have within my family that happened.
Great,
There was
yeah.
actually the husband became unfaithful to the wife after so many years, and then his mom wound up amending the trust before she died to reflect kind of the mistreatment that the mom had. And so this is the case where it didn't go wrong, where it did go right, where the grandmom was ahead of it and made sure that her wishes were carried out and nothing could be contested.
That's good, because especially if it comes with an inheritance and family money, that's with your family. And then if that spouse passes away,
And the more it is, the more they'll fight.
exactly, yes. And so we want to avoid that as much as possible. What I want to talk to you today about too is just, during the holidays too, we noticed that, maybe mom and dad are just a little bit wobbly, they're not getting around as well as they used to, or, Aunt Marie is kind of losing her memory a little bit. So there's those types of things. I want to talk to you guys about being incapacitated. So let's talk down that road. So what happens if somebody becomes incapacitated that does not have an estate plan? Because I don't think people really understand the severity of something like that.
Yeah, that's a really, really big issue right now, because people are not educated. They just automatically think if mom becomes incapacitated, well, dad will automatically be her caretaker.
Or dad's not around, so the oldest sibling kind of steps in.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's just it's just the family, and so that's just how it's going to be, and everything will be fine. But it's not that way. You have to have the legal documents in place for somebody to take over your affairs. And if you are incapacitated, meaning you cannot make decisions for yourself, or you cannot do the activities of daily living anymore. And there are no powers of attorney, minimum powers of attorney for asset management and financial affairs or healthcare in place. It's going to be too late to do those things. And then the dominoes start falling because mom can no longer live at home anymore. She needs to go into a facility. Okay, who's got the documents to approve these things? Well, nobody does. Okay, this is the point where we need to have an attorney step in and represent your mother because she has nothing in place. And that's called a conservatorship. You're looking at a minimum of $5,000 just to get started. And somebody else is going to be in charge of mom, not you, not the husband, not the kids. So the conservator is going to take hold of mom's estate, make sure that things are being paid, nobody's dipping into mom's funds, and the kids are basically not going to have any power over mom's affairs. So it's very, very sad and very, very unfortunate. And the money that gets paid to this conservator in all the courts comes out of mom's estate. Mom needs that precious money to take care of her affairs, maybe go into a nursing home or an assisted living, but they also have to take money out of her bank account, which should be money to use for her care, which is very, very expensive right now if you don't have any long-term care insurance, or if you don't have enough money in the bank. You're looking at $5,000 to $10,000 a month for somebody to go into an assisted living nursing home facility. So
That can be a lot.
it's a lot, and it depletes the estate, and there's nothing left for anybody. And then mom has to go probably get on state assistance, which is called, in California, is called Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal will not let you, starve or be living on the streets. They will take care of you, but you have to use their facilities and their rules, and they want you to deplete your estate down to about $2,000 a month. You can still have a home, but oftentimes people end up selling the primary home because there was nothing in place. So incapacity is a very, very sad situation. And I'm so thankful. And when people come to us and say, mom's not doing well, we need some assistance getting in charge of her affairs, meaning stepping somebody up in charge of her bank accounts legally. And the first thing we ask is, does your mom have a power of attorney in place? And if they say yes, I'm like, thank you. Can you please send that over to me? If mom has at least a power of attorney in place for financial affairs and healthcare, there's a lot of things we can do to get you in charge of that estate and step you up to be in charge with mom. And there is no conservatorship involved. So,
And talk about the timing too. So like, let's say that your elderly parent, something happens and they're in the hospital. I mean, to go to the court system and to go through that whole process, I mean, that's not a couple of days,
No, it's a very, very long process. The courts are very backed up with COVID and the whole court system right now. It's very, very challenging to get anything done. And so oftentimes
And
you're in
oftentimes
limbo.
family law gets put to, I have actually a network business person who is a judge, pro tem judge here in Orange County. And he's like, family law goes kind of last, secondary to some other more serious trials. So probate goes, there's going to be longer than you think.
Right. And we call that living probate, because if you become incapacitated and you have no documents in place, you're going through a living probate, meaning the courts are in charge now. And so you want to just make sure that if you see any inkling of your parents or any family members that are not quite all there, but they kind of are, we have our good days and bad days. Take a hold of that situation immediately. Call AmeriEstate. Let's get a powers of attorney in place before they are deemed incapacitated, so we can handle their affairs and take care of business and save their assets and protect their welfare before something really happens. So it's very, very hard, and especially around the holidays. This is when we see our relatives that we haven't seen, especially in a long time now. You're going to see changes in people.
Yeah, that's so
Just
true.
be very, very aware of what's going on.
Well,
I just like to say, obviously, we know which one in the group here knows the most about estate planning.
yes, that's true.
Which is
Yeah.
why I'm so thankful that, I have the resources here as well as the other people who have years under their belt.
Absolutely.
Fortunately, I haven't had to deal with the incapacity issue, but I know that because the estate plan's been set up, that I will have my hands full when that day arrives, but I will have directions and instructions, a guidebook.
Yeah.
So that's a very comforting thought to me.
Yeah, that's
It's
really
great peace of mind for the kids.
extremely, yes, wonderful peace of mind. And you touched on something too, is when you're having that conversation with your parents, asking them that question, do you have anything set aside for long-term care? Do you have a life insurance policy? So not only do you have an estate plan or a living trust, do you have assisted living, insurance or life insurance? Those are some things to ask.
Or some property that hasn't been disclosed.
Exactly, yeah. And so, we're happy to go through all that with you ahead of time and give you a checklist of, things that you can ask your parents. And something else too, I think that a lot of people don't really understand too is, you may have that family member who has some kind of a special needs.
Mhm.
And that could really be anything. My brother-in-law actually has Down syndrome, and it's my husband's side of the family, and we just recently, within the last few years, set up a living trust for him because he needs to be taken care of. Once my mother-in-law passes away, and I'm so glad that we did because we wouldn't have known how to really go about and set that up and, make sure, what his needs are. So have you guys had any other experiences having to deal with any special needs types of trusts?
I haven't myself, but one of our advisors who's been with us for a long time, he always uses AmeriEstate for all he specializes in structured settlements where people have really life-changing disabilities. And that is a special, and they always require some form of special needs trust. So they always come to us, and they can be for sometimes really bad accidents for lots and lots of money, but we're always able to handle that and take care of it for his people.
Right. Well, one other point to that is if you have a special needs child or somebody who's just is kind of on the spectrum, that they are not going to be able to handle their own affairs should you pass away. And also, if you are their guardian, you need to let people know how are we to take care of that special needs sibling, brother, who's going to be the next person in line for that. And so what happens is if you have an AmeriEstate living trust for yourself and you have a special needs child or somebody on the spectrum that you want to make sure that money isn't going to go directly to them, you need to have an AmeriEstate trust for yourself, for you and your husband or just you. And you can still put that special needs person in as a beneficiary. A lot of people just don't even put their kids in if they have special needs as a beneficiary. But with AmeriEstate, there are special instructions within that trust that says, no, that special needs person can still be a beneficiary, but we have special instructions carved out should you pass away that we are going to set up a sub-special needs trust within your trust where somebody else is going to be in charge of it for them. Because most of the time those children are going to be on public benefits for housing and services. And the minute the state finds out that they've inherited money, everything will be canceled. So that's why an AmeriEstate trust is super important for if you have special needs children. A lot of special needs people do not set up their own special needs trust.
Yeah.
They can't do that. They're not capable of it. Usually that is something like Scott was talking about. If you are in an accident and you are coming into a lot of funds, you need a place to put those funds. But for your own child, just set up your own AmeriEstate trust. You can make them as a beneficiary. Their assets, their services will not be canceled if you pass away or become incapacitated, because that will be carved out and held in safety and somebody else managing it for them.
Now, I know I've experienced this and I'm sure we've heard it all the time, is that we've got those family members that say, oh, I'm just gonna put you on my bank accounts. Now I'm just gonna put you on my bank accounts. You know what? I'm just gonna add you to the title of my property. And actually that's what my stepmother was gonna do that. She's like, I'm just gonna add you to the house. I'm like, no, let's not do that. Let's talk about reasons why that should not be done. And I'm just gonna share one thing with you too, is that if you put somebody on your bank accounts or title, and let's say that you get divorced, those assets that they put you on title are now your assets. So when you're getting divorced, you also own that other property and those other assets. So that's a whole issue right there. But let's talk about some other reasons why that's just not a good idea to add people to your bank accounts or your property.
I'm gonna defer to you because I think you know this best, but I know I learned from you.
Well, I've been doing this for 23 years, so I've seen a lot. The most important thing to know is if you put somebody on title to your property, they own 50% of it, any financial accounts, anything. And I know a lot of people trust their oldest son, especially like you have 5 kids and the oldest son is the one who's going to take care of business. And that's all fine. We understand that, you trust him, but guess what? If you pass away, that becomes his property. And he does not have to share it with anybody. It's his, and you're not around anymore to tell anybody that, no, Junior's going to divide everything up between his siblings. That's a really, really bad idea, because a lot of times Junior says, no, Mom put me on it because she wanted me to have the house and the bank accounts. So sorry, guys. And he doesn't really care about his sibling relationships, and he's off traveling and buying up expensive cars and houses, and you guys are all the kids are sitting back just tearing. It's a let's tear the family apart opportunity. And so all the hard work that Mom has made to keep a cohesive family and have good relationships is torn apart the minute she passes away. So don't put people on title to your assets with you. Super important. Call AmeriEstate. We're going to help you decide how to put those properties, how to title those assets, so it goes to the people you wanted to go to equally and fairly and peacefully.
Peacefully, yes, that's it. We're just about ready to wrap it up. Do you have any final thoughts about bringing up this uncomfortable subject about estate planning during the holidays?
You just have to kind of do it, and you'll be surprised that once you do it, oftentimes it'll be a common release of tension, not just your own, but for others. And then more things happen, and it actually becomes a nice bonding experience.
Michelle?
Yeah, I would have to agree. Don't make it an uncomfortable situation. Make it, it's business. It's family business that needs to be addressed, and we can't put our head under the sand because of, our parents are older now, and now is the time. Carpe diem. My parents are in their 80s. My dad landed in the hospital just yesterday. And one of the things that was at the question that was first asked from the nurse taking this information is, do you have a healthcare directive, Mr. Reese? And he said, yes, I do. And they were like, thank you. It was so nice to know that we have all my dad's documents in place in case something happens, and the nurses know who they can talk to legally with HIPAA release, and just the peace of mind knowing that I had, knowing if something happens to Dad or Mom, I know what to do. Now I have an advantage over most people, but just by having those documents in place. So I would just say, don't make it uncomfortable. Don't be shy. You've got to be bold, and you have to take control. But have a discussion with your siblings maybe before you all get together. Have a list of questions you want to talk to Mom and Dad about. If Mom and Dad are remarried and they have new spouses, maybe the spouse is living in Dad's house. What's going to happen there? Let Dad tell you what his plan is, because there's nothing worse than Dad passing away and then the mom, the wife is living in the house you grew up in and you have no clue what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So just hopefully you can have that open, honest discussion and your parents will be willing to discuss these things with you. So everybody knows and is relieved, but make sure you back it up with the plan in writing. Just don't take their word, this is what I'm doing. Say, Dad, can you show me where you say that in your documents? Where are you keeping your documents? Show me where you keep your financial affairs and assets. So if something happens, we can take over and help you.
Right.
So don't just take their word, have them show you.
Yes.
You
It's
know,
like show and tell.
And a roadblock, a speed bump for me getting my own trust is just like, oh, I gotta make all these decisions right now, and I don't quite know. But the beauty of with our trust that we have the legal plan behind it, so I can make my decisions now and change them later,
Yeah,
whenever
right.
I want.
Mhm.
Because the important thing was to just get that
Get it done.
foundation.
Yes.
Get it done.
Get it
You can
done.
change it later. It's super simple. And one more thing, if your parents say they have an estate plan, ask them, how long ago did you get that done?
Mhm.
And if they say, oh, that was done in the 90s and early 2000s, have you updated it since then? Oh, no, it's
They'll have HIPAA
collecting
and
dust on the
Instead
shelf.
and all sorts of stuff.
Okay, Dad, Mom, there's been a lot of law changes with HIPAA and a lot of things, and you guys have bought and sold property, you've refinanced your houses. Did you put those in your trust? We're finding a lot of people have not put their properties back in trust after these awesome refinance rates are
Yes.
out there.
That's huge.
The lenders make them pull their
Good point.
property out of trust and they never put it back.
Mhm.
And then they pass away, and guess what? That trust is not worth anything now.
Yeah.
Those properties have to go through probate. So that's another really, really good thing to pay attention to
Yeah,
is
should review
make
it.
sure that gets reviewed. We'll take a look at your trust. Just send us a copy, email it, drop it off. We'll take a look at it for free so we can kind of tell you what we see. And we're gonna verify if those properties are in trust and we're gonna ask the right
Mhm.
questions. How about your financial accounts, Mom and Dad? How are those titled? Do you have the proper beneficiaries on your your bank
Correct.
accounts, your 401ks, your IRAs, your life insurance?
Roth
Oh,
IRAs,
I
all
find
that.
a lot of
Mhm.
times Mom is passed and Dad never took her off, and guess what? There's no backup plan, and that IRA has to go through probate.
Mhm.
So all these things are part of the AmeriEstate process.
Yeah, and so that's what, AmeriEstate's been in business for quite a while, 23 years. We have over 40,000 clients that we've worked with. If you set your living trust up with somebody else, we can definitely review it for you. We've been around a long time. And then something to think about too is, the holidays are here. And, we give coffee cups, we give necklaces, we give great gifts, but wouldn't it be really great to give the gift of an estate plan? It's not as expensive as you think, or even just like if you've got a college, a young adult your child that just graduated from high school and is going to college. We've got, in case of emergency kit, that includes specific documents that they need when they move out, and we can definitely help with that. So give us a call at AmeriEstate and we'll be happy to review your trust, or if you have any questions, we'll be here to help you. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna ring the bell.
Our dinner bell. Thank you for joining us.